Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Moroccan mint green tea. Excuse me. And it's just a favorite. I go back to this all the time. Which has nothing to do with my choice of reads today, but I just thought I'd share one of my favorite teas in case we ever have a Taking Tea with Catherine trivia contest, which we won't. But anyway, yeah, I decided I should do a Friday Reads. It's been a little while since I've done a Friday Reads, and June has been such a weird month for me. Like, things in New York are starting to open up, but there's still that cautiousness, which I think is wise. I mean, you don't want to just rush out into things and then suddenly everybody gets sick again. Or people who didn't get sick, or that kind of thing. So I'm basically still doing what I've done the past months, is mostly staying at home, going out for the walk occasionally, and that's it. It's a little, I hear a lot of people complaining because, oh, it's summer, we want to do fun summer things. And I'm like, I am a spring and autumn person, so I didn't get to do my spring and autumn things. So I'm like, enough of the complaining. We can whine all we want, but let's see what we're actually grateful for too. And, however, I do think maybe it's the heat, maybe it's just things that are going on everywhere and, life as it is. But it did plunge me into a bit of a rough time in June once again. I think I had been picking up a little bit in May, and then So I really haven't felt up to doing Friday Reads or, very regular videos right now, just because I just wasn't reading a lot. I was reading, but not reading as much as I could, and not really doing much of anything, just being constantly tired, etc. But I thought, well, while I can, I might as well do a little talking about what I'm reading recently. And I had a TBR for June, and I kept to it somewhat, and then I, detoured a little bit, and I think that is basically what I do every month now, and I probably will always do. I know I have Jane Austen July coming up, and I already, excuse me, posted that TBR. Usually I try to stick pretty close to those kind of TBRs, those extreme themes like Jane Austen July, October, etc. But otherwise, I think one can make plans, but we just don't know what every month is going to have in store for us. For us in a lot of ways, mentally, physically, everything. And in our schedules, we just don't know. So I don't mind. I don't mind some of the changes, and some of the changes I thought were pretty darn good. And then the things that I haven't read yet or haven't picked up yet that I had planned to do in June, and I'm like, I can do it still. Doesn't have to be right now. It could be a little later. One of the things I did as not so much of a detour, but just a slight, well, yeah, probably a detour. I gotta stop using road metaphors because I don't drive. But, so I was trying to think of a different thing, and I was like, I decided to, widen out my reading a little bit. Obviously, I have certain preferences, and that's fine, but it's also good in any respect to put a little variety. But I also know my personality, and it's when I try to see what else is there that I go a little nuts. It's like if someone says to me, Catherine, we are in, say, Woodside, Queens, or Jackson Heights, Queens, which, if you don't know these areas and thereabouts, these are areas that have restaurants of like so many different cultures and geographical influences, and it's fantastic if you like to eat and if you like variety. But if you get me and I'm hungry and you're like, Catherine, where do you want to eat? I'll be like, well, there was that really good Indian restaurant. Oh, Nepali is good too. Oh, I haven't had Filipino food in a while. And oh, Colombian and Salvadorian pupusas. I will do this, and then and I'm just touching the surface of what is available in that area per se. I will not be able to. I will keep seeing what else is there, and we will just fall on the floor and never eat for the rest of our lives. So I'm the same with books. When I'm like, okay, besides what I normally read or what I gravitate toward, what else? I will go all over the map, and I won't be able to choose anything. So I decided in widening out I will just start with one thing and then incorporate other things in other time periods, right? And also, I mean, especially because I don't have the regular access to library books, and I keep saying this, but it's true, my e-books are just wonky with me, and with my e-reader, not so good. Maybe I'll get a new e-reader, but I'm just not doing that. I'm waiting for like a sale. um, so until then, I can't just say I want to try this and just check something out of the library, and if I don't like it, no. So I thought, okay, how am I going to try something that's new, mostly new to me, but won't kill my budget, and maybe will stick to my, goal of reading more classics, which I always read, but I wanted to read more of this year. And then I thought, this is something that's kind of been buzzing in my head because of spending time in a specific area a lot last year, and it just seems to be something that keeps popping up. I saw postal stamps when I was in the post office that were commemorating this time period and this place, and I just keep seeing reminders. So I said, what about the Harlem Renaissance? I don't know that much about it, and I'm not going to go, into maybe the music as much or every single part of the history, although I'm not against learning history. I love history. But it's New York, so it's not too much of a change, but I have read almost no books or even poems by writers of the Harlem Renaissance. And I know I had some exposure in school, but not enough. So I said, on my own, this is something where I can actually hone in a little bit and pick some things that I like, and maybe if I could focus even more, maybe a little more toward the female writers, because, And so I did that. I went online, I looked up some things, I made a few purchases, nothing really extravagant. One nonfiction, it may not end there, but one nonfiction. And so I have a collection of books, and I was going to do a haul, but I was like, I still have things coming in, so either cross that bridge till we come to it, or just show you guys little at a time. We shall see. So what I'm reading right now, and I'm almost finished with, is not this complete book, but a book within this book. So this is the complete fiction of Nella Larson. I guess she probably also wrote nonfiction, because they had to specify this was her complete fiction. Shows how much I know. And this has Passing, Quicksand, and The Stories. So the two novels or novellas basically are Passing and Quicksand. I was first alerted to the existence of Passing through some searches, and that sounded like something I really wanted to read. I still want to read. But I'm doing the thing that I do when in the middle of a search a spoiler popped up, and I went, haywire, and I said, wait a minute, I know what happens, and I didn't want to know that, so I'm going to table that for now. Maybe I'll come back to it later, because sometimes I don't mind. I obviously read Agatha Christie mysteries despite seeing a lot of adaptations over the years. So I thought I'd give it a little time, and maybe I'll forget. Maybe. I have been forgetting a lot of things lately, so that's maybe good. But I thought, okay, I will read Quicksand. So I'm reading Quicksand. I'm almost finished with Quicksand. I don't know how much I want to tell you about it without giving away beyond what I've seen in descriptions. It's about a woman named Helga Crane who is kind of dissatisfied with her life, and we follow her. She's in her early 20s. And we follow her as she goes to moves to different places, tries different careers or jobs or social situations to try to find herself, kind of, and to fight her feeling of not belonging and her loneliness, because she is of a mixed background. Her mother was Scandinavian American, and her father was black, and that nowadays maybe not, depending on where you're at, not such a big deal, but I guess in the 20s and previous to that may have been a little bit of a difficult thing to grow up with. So she's just trying to find where she really relates to people, and sometimes she looks for people and gets rejected. And it is not easy. So that, I don't want to tell you any more about the story, except it is, so far, I find it very well written. I am still following her story, as it were, not just, okay, I want to just read this book. I actually am interested in what happens. And descriptions are very descriptive, and which is good, because I'm not always, some people do, I don't know, some people write descriptions that aren't that interesting to me, but she, so far, kind of interesting. I don't know. Your mileage may vary, as they say, but I do feel like, and again, I'm reading, I want to finish Quicksand first before I read this introduction, which talks a little bit about her life, Nilla Larson. I think some of Quicksand might be semi-autobiographical, I'm not sure, but I don't know about how much. But there's kind of an introduction that talks about her life, and I thought, let me finish Quicksand first in case they make references to what happens, spoilers and stuff. And since I'm already spoiler passing, that I won't worry as much on the short stories. I don't mind either way. So that's one book that I am reading. So I will show you the one book that I finished this month since we last. No, I read a couple of books, but I haven't really talked about it. And one of the books I finished is a mystery, and I'm working on a tea and mystery video, so I won't really get into that. This is the book that my book club was doing, and when I realized we were coming close to the day that we were supposed to discuss it, I went through it and read really quickly through it, which it's the kind of book you can do that. Like, you can concentrate, but you can also zoom through. And then I guess you guys are really tired of hearing the word zoom in your life, right? But anyway, but then I found out that they rescheduled our little book club meeting, so I probably didn't have to finish it, but that's okay, because it was a good book. And that is Sue Monk Kidd, The Invention of Wings, which is historical fiction, actually. I didn't know that from the very beginning, but then once I was reading it, I said, how did I not know about this person and her sister, who are both big, historical figures? And Sarah Grimke and her sister Angelina were women who grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, under a lot of privilege. Their family had lots of slaves, and in the early 1800s, and this is from Sarah's point of view. She is not satisfied with her life because, she doesn't like the idea of slavery, whatever. At all, whatsoever. That's the word. And she also doesn't like how little is open to her as a woman. Very little that one can do. So she kind of, you could say, rebels against that at some point in her life, and that it just basically follows her story, and somewhat of her sister's story. And it also, the chapters are kind of like divided between her and her, a girl, then a woman who is a slave, who grows up in her household, whose name is Handful, and there's an explanation why that's her name. She wasn't 100% of a actual historical person that existed. She's based a little bit on an account of Sarah Grimke's early life, and then they just created her character from there. And a lot of this is fictionalized. It's not everything that happened was exactly as it happened in real life. But it is a well-told story. I felt, not everyone that I've read reviews of felt, but I felt invested in what was happening to both characters, and that's good. Now I want to know more about the Grimkes. They were, both, feminist and abolitionist. So it was like, people were very accepting of them in the North for being abolitionists. Not everybody, but a lot of, people in the North were like, yeah, this is a terrible thing. But then it was like, you shouldn't be speaking up for women. That's another time. Just not now. Focus on this one thing. And I do get the whole thing about focusing, but it's like, yeah, but our lives are affected by these things. So that was the whole plot. Without telling you everything. Gosh, I hope I don't give away spoilers after telling you how much I hate spoilers. Okay, so here's the other, because there's a couple of books that I started, but I don't feel like I'm in it enough to say, okay, let me talk about it, because I, just started. But these two, my deal is after I've hit maybe 50 pages, I could say. And this one I've cracked over 100, so that's good. Wait, looking. This one I'm close to 200, so yes. So this is one you probably saw if you watched my TBR. It is the nonfiction I'm basically reading right now. This looks really attractive, right? This is Dave McCulloch's, 1776. It is good for me. It's not going to be a quick read because it's a lot of military, a lot of descriptions of battles and getting the military together and its organization and what goes behind it. And some of that's interesting, but it's never been my cup of tea when I'm reading history. I know some people love that more than anything. Who was I seeing that? Peg at the History Shelf, I think, talks about loves battles, and I'm like, that's great. I almost would like to, when people really love reading about battles, I almost want to hear their descriptions of battles more because I know that that's what they're into. But like me, I'm okay with knowing it happened and maybe a little bit of how it was a success, but I just don't really care that much. And that seems to be most of what this book is about. I don't know what I expected with this book, but like I think, and I'm only up to March of 1976. Yeah, no. Anyway, I'm only up to March of 1776, but so it may get a little further. I thought it was going to be a little more of other things, so I don't know what I expected. But again, it is still good, so I'm going to keep reading it. Well written, learning things about people that I had already read about that I didn't know, so that is always good. And last but very much not least, this is something that I had not intended to pick up this month and have no problem with the fact that I actually ended up doing so, because one of the things that will make me change my reading very quickly is when I get to read with somebody, especially my big buddy when it comes to buddy reads, which is my sister Bonnie. My buddy Bonnie. We do have similar tastes in books, and especially in classics, and we've read a few things at the same time. I'm still reading kind of Dombey and Son. Yeah, it's here. I did actually get further in some of my classics, like I read a little further in here, but I won't want to talk about it because not as far as I'd like to go. But we successfully both read, I think it was The Secret Garden we both read in May, and we read Barchester Chowers. Chowers, that's a word. Maybe it is, who knows. I'm learning a lot of words from Anthony Trollope, actually. He uses words that are actual English words, but that I never heard of, and then, yeah, learning. But, so Barchester Towers was the first in, the second in the Barchester series. The first one was The Warden, which I read many years ago, but a lot of people start with Barchester Towers just because it is a more, I don't know, fun read, maybe. So the next one to follow is Dr. Thorne, and this is a Wordsworth classic I have. Here it is. I did take it out already. This was one of my earliest Wordsworth classics that I bought. I bought it in London in 1994. Woohoo! Going way back. But I don't have too many of them. That might be it, actually. I don't know. But this is still it. There are characters that were in Barchester Towers that are in this book so far. Even one that was mentioned in another series of Anthony Trollope's. But it's a slightly different story. It does have certain almost Jane Austen-esque things about, people who are looking to marry, and money is factoring very much into it, so that's something. But there are also maybe slightly more Victorian sensibilities popping up in here. And because it's Anthony Trollope, there is always going to be some political stuff like elections, which is not my thing either. But I think it's worth the read anyway. So far I do think it's good. I don't have as many of the full out laughs that I did in the previous book, but it is still great. The characters are not just I mean, I love Charles Dickens, but they're not just like these kind of quirky characters, although some can be quirky, but they're also kind of many-dimensional. So I really do like that. And I thought the plot was running way too fast, so I'm wondering if he's actually slowing it down now by sticking other aspects in there. But you know what? I am enjoying the ride, and it is going again with my classics endeavors. Yes. So that's all for my Friday reads. I'm sure I could talk for hours and hours about what I still intend to read, but June is almost done, and July is another story altogether. You've already seen my TBR if you've watched, and if not, go ahead and watch my TBR. I'm really loving, by the way, speaking just of not so much Friday reads, but Friday views, I've been watching and catching up on, too, some Jane Austen TBRs. Jane Austen July TBRs, and it's like, it's so addictive to watch people talk about what they're planning to read, and seeing who's reading the same stuff as me, who's reading something different, because sometimes someone will come up with a book or poems or essays or something, and I'm like, ooh, I didn't even think of that. I'm going back. You can't see up further. Like I said, I did some reorganizing, but I didn't realize that I actually had some other novels from the Regency time period that I could have read, but I'm happy with my choices. There are so many choices, and it just, again, see, now I'm telling you how when I have so many choices, I have to sit down and just focus, because if I don't, I will go every which way, and no one needs that. Specifically me. So anyway, let me know if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned here, and if you like them, and or maybe why you didn't like some of them without giving away spoilers. Thank you. I hope I haven't given away spoilers. And that's it for now. Hope you're having a wonderful summer so far. Very different one probably than you've ever had before. Possibly. This is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea, book, and maybe sunshine-filled day. Bye.